Well, thank you for joining us, Diane, and wanted to, I guess, congratulate you on your new role with the Minnesota State Bar Association as the current president. Um, but I guess before we get into that, just was wondering if you could talk a little bit about just kind of, what drew you to the legal profession, and what factored into your choices becoming a lawyer? Is this just something you've always wanted to do, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can, I always tell the same story when people ask me that question. I remember being in an 8th grade civics class, and we had to do a career paper on what we wanted to do. And um, I had, way back then, had decided I was going to do my paper on being a lawyer. So I connected with a local attorney. There's nobody in my family that's ever been a lawyer before, so I didn't have that to fall back on. So I connected with a local attorney who happened to be the brother of a really good friend of mine, interviewed him about the job and the profession, and wrote my paper. And it was sort of from that point forward, I thought that's what I was going to do. So I had always planned on going to law school after I finished college. And I suppose the one thing that did change is I never, as I was pursuing my legal education and career, I didn't anticipate being a litigator. That was not something that was what I had planned on doing for my whole life. I thought I would be a lawyer that sat in my office and provided advice and maybe wrote some documents, but I didn't really think about the court angle on it until I had gotten basically through law school and started clerking with a couple of judges in Olmsted County, and then realized that litigation was something that not only I could do, but I was interested in doing. So that's pretty much what I've been doing since that time.
Okay. And what are your primary areas of focus, and who are your clients typically?
Sure. So I started working, as I said, I clerked for a year with a couple of judges, and then I immediately went to work with the firm that I'm at now. It was under a different name at the time, but Quinlivan in St. Cloud. And they have traditionally, at least when I started, their history had been in doing insurance defense litigation. So, everything from car accidents to premises liability claims to employment claims, anything that traditionally was under the insurance umbrella that would garner some defenses. And so that's how I grew up, I guess, if you will, in the practice. Started doing, again, the more traditional insurance defense, and it has, over the years, developed more into a more narrow practice of working with public entities, so a lot of cities, counties, school districts, on employment-related claims and civil rights, constitutional claims, that sort of thing.
Okay. Are you working on any COVID-related stuff now, or has that changed your focus at all?
It certainly has changed with all the legislation that has come out in response to COVID. There's a lot of clients that need advice on what that legislation means for their workforces. So that certainly has at least opened up that avenue of conversation on a more transactional standpoint. And then, of course, there's the ongoing question, which is unfortunate. What do we do when we have someone who tests positive, and how do we respond to that, and how we handle it? So there has been some of that, thankfully not a lot. But yeah, it has, I don't want to say provided opportunities, because I don't think anybody wants to consider the pandemic as providing an opportunity, but it certainly has required us to pivot a little bit on the types of services that we provide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, can you talk a little bit about your new duties with the Bar Association as president, and what are some of the goals you'll be focusing on, and how will you focus your efforts there?
Sure. Well, the responsibilities of being the Bar Association president are wide and varied, even in the most usual circumstances. And I would certainly put us now into an unusual circumstance with the COVID COVID era that we're of course dealing with. But the Bar Association in general is representative of over 50% of the lawyers who are licensed in Minnesota. We're a voluntary bar association, and I think there's something like just slightly over 25,000 attorneys in the state, and almost 14,000 of them belong to the MSBA. So as you can imagine, that brings together a wide variety of people and practices, and so it's not, it's a pretty diverse spectrum of issues that we have to deal with. But, the MSBA at its core helps deal with the administration of justice, of course, making sure that we're addressing things that impact our profession. We work to make sure our membership has access to high quality educational programs. Maintaining public trust in the legal system is very, very high on the MSBA priority list. And certainly advocating for the interests of our profession as well. So as the president, there's a fair amount of balancing that you have to do on all of those fronts. The structure of the MSBA is a little, some people don't really appreciate. It's not just the officers. There's a 128 member assembly that really formulates the policy positions of the MSBA. And then there's a 16-member council that works on the day-to-day management of those issues and putting those policies in place. And then, of course, you have the leadership track. But that doesn't even take into account all of the real work of the association that's being done by. We have 37 sections and 15 or 16 committees, and they're doing a lot of the, they're the boots on the ground and doing a lot of the day-to-day work of the association. So, in my role as a president, I obviously have the pleasure of, managing, if you will, the council, and making sure that the policy positions are being put in place and being advocated for. But again, there's a lot of hard work that goes into just managing the association, and our staff is probably more key to that process than people also realize, because they're the ones that are making sure that our members are getting the value that they need from their membership.
In just looking at some of your recent remarks on since you became the president of the Bar Association, it sounds like you have a strong interest in some of the social justice issues, and how people of color have access to and are making sure they're treated fairly by the justice system. And can you talk a little bit about that and kind of where you stand there and what you see as some of the ways to address that?
Sure. As I said, the MSBA is one of the main purpose of the MSBA is to aid in the administration of justice. And for us to effectively do that, we have to make sure that the justice system is fair for everybody, and not just exclusive to certain members of our society. And I think that the MSBA takes that position very seriously. I think the MSBA collectively, like many individuals and organizations following the killing of George Floyd, has had to sort of become more intentional about those responses that will be taken. And as a group, I actually just finished an MSBA council meeting before we connected here today. And as a collective, our MSBA council is dedicated to making sure that the MSBA does something to move that needle forward, as opposed to just simply reacting to what occurred back in May. I wish I could tell you what those efforts are going to be, but we're still in the process of figuring that out. We do know that there are lots of organizations that are already working very hard at addressing those issues, and one way that we know through the association that we can support that is to serve as a resource to our members to connect them to those opportunities. So that's one way that we are trying to make sure that we are, fulfilling that goal that we have of aiding in the administration of justice and making sure the justice system is fair.
one other thing it sounds like that's top of mind is just talking about greater Minnesota and I guess the struggle to attract and retain lawyers there. Um, what can you say about that?
Sure. Well, it's obviously an issue that's near and dear to my heart because I do practice in St. Cloud. I can say that as a business owner, we struggle to get applicants interested in coming out to practice in the greater Minnesota area. And, again, based upon conversations I've had with lots of different people across the state, they're similarly struggling to attract attorneys to practice out state. So, and just on a national level, there's a lot of conversation at the ABA about rural practice across America struggling. So I think as a profession, we've got, certainly there are population centers in the metro that are attractive to people that want to practice. But it's sort of like the old schoolhouse in rural America, in rural Minnesota. Once that closes, everybody says that the community dies. It's sort of like the local lawyer as well. If you have to drive 70 or 80 miles to find a lawyer who can help you, that's not good. And so it does stifle access to justice. It does limit people's ability to actually get their legal needs met. So it certainly, I think, is something that I personally would like to see us address. Um, Unfortunately, it's not an easy answer. Um, I think statistically, law student enrollment is down. We've found that the people that like to practice outstate are usually those that have some sort of a connection to the community, whether they grew up there or they have family there or something like that. And so, we're trying to be creative as to how we incentivize people to sort of give us a shot by looking at outstate. And again, I don't have any magic bullet on that issue, but I think that talking about the benefits that you obtain by working outstate, whether it's a slower paced lifestyle or a lower cost of living or high quality access to activities, that sort of thing, all of those things might matter. And so those are things that I'm trying to explain to people as well. And frankly, again, not to say that something good has come of COVID, because I think so much bad has, but post-COVID and practicing in the COVID area has really opened up opportunities for greater Minnesota. You don't have to drive to the metro for those bar association meetings. We're doing all of our meetings virtually, and our attendance has been great. We are opening up opportunities for leadership through a virtual platform that someone might not have otherwise considered because it might have been too burdensome to do so. So, we have to look at the silver lining on that. And I think, doing some of these things the way we're doing now, I hope we can retain them while still getting back to some sense of normalcy, because so much of what the law practice is, at least for me, is interacting with people in person. And spending time with people and getting to know people. So, yeah, those are some ideas that I have.
Sure, and it sounds like another issue is it sounds like there's probably some room for improvement in terms of attracting more women and people of color to the profession, especially in leadership positions. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that something that's on your mind as well?
Yeah, I mean, diversity and inclusion is certainly part of the core beliefs of MSBA. It's been part of our strategic plan for the last several years. And, we are always looking for ways to enhance that membership. Again, there's a lot of statistics out there. Sometimes it's just extending the invitation to someone is all they need before they realize that, oh, I do have a seat at the table, or someone is interested in me participating. But someone said today, actually during our meeting, that people of color and women, you have to ask them 3 or 4 times before they'll accept. And so we just have to keep asking. And we need to work to identify leaders and identify people that we know would take our organization forward. And again, I think that as a group, as a collective, we've got MSBA members on board with that conversation.
Well, what else is on your mind? Any other issues that you'll be looking at in your new position? Any other thoughts?
You know, that's kind of a big question. One thing that I didn't anticipate and now have to anticipate is ways to make sure that our members understand the value of MSBA membership in this virtual world. It's been all over the news. COVID has impacted some firms more than others. There's been a lot of financial impact that this has had, of course, on our profession. But it also has had impact of us, how we deliver our services to our clients. And so, one thing that I'm dedicated to doing, or at least very interested in doing, both in my role as MSBA president for the benefit of our members, but also because personally it affects me, is making sure that we get over those hurdles and figure out a way to continue to maintain the ability to provide good legal services in a way that's effective to the clients we serve. But translating that back to the membership, it's again making sure that the membership understands that the MSBA is here to help them and to give them the tools that they need to be successful in their practices. And so we want people who are not members of MSBA to realize that, oh, if I became a member of the MSBA, I could have that benefit as well. So we need to make sure that we are focused on keeping our members connected to the things that we can provide to them.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dyan. Enjoyed our conversation, and I wish you well in your in your role as president of the association.
Thank you. One of the things, a comment that I'm hearing all the time from people who have reached out to me is, good luck. Boy, it must be hard to be in your shoes right now. So at least I can say that I know that people are empathetic to this to this challenge, but I feel confident that the MSBA will come through it, and our members will appreciate all the services we provide.
Great. Sounds good. Well, thanks again. Take care, Dyan.
Great. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.